I'm connecting to the internet.
Internet.
Networking software.
The World Wide Web thing on a computer today.
Computer.
NetSKIER Pro.
And it's the holiday season.
The holiday season.
So hoop-de-doo and doop-a-dee-door. And don't forget your Ethernet cord. Because exactly at 12:54 we'll be going round the World Wide Web. Please, Sinatra the state, don't sue.
The last part was not harmonious.
All right. Welcome to NetSKIER Pro, a whirlwind ride through the World Wide Web. I am your tour guide, Matt, and with me is my co-tour guide,
Galen, as always. And we have ourselves a special little boy who won the golden ticket to be on this year's episode of Holiday Surfer Christmas
I was thinking
Ornament.
NetSKIER Snow.
Oh, I like that. Either way, today we're here with the Weasel. Would you like it to introduce
Weasel
yourself?
who lives under your floorboards and occasionally in your Discord server.
Much
when
like
I'm not
Harrison
sleeping
Floor.
and being miserable about my life.
Now, when you say lives under your floorboards, do you mean our floorboards, the hosts, or do you mean the listeners' floorboards right now?
No.
I would check under your floorboards, listeners.
I'm
Like
not going
Harrison
to imply
Ford.
which thing I was saying no to. People do yes too much. People do the ambiguous yes too much.
Yeah.
Bring back the ambiguous no.
Yeah, forget yes-anding. We are no-butting.
Yes. If there's one thing about
Actually, real
improv-
talk though, the ambiguous yes joke does crack me up, but I feel like the ambiguous no is not done enough. Where it's just like, what did he say no to? Like, what was like? Was that both or neither of those things? Okay.
So, today on the World Wide Web, we decided to go to a website called, I don't know if you know about this. It's called the Internet Movie Database, or IMDb for short. And after just a little bit of searching, IMDb,
It's Mr. Dragon Ball.
And we decided to search around for just Christmas-like movies.
Wait, no, you speak for yourselves. You guys went to Internet Movie Database. I just watched the Mr. Sunday Movies reviews of the Santa Clauses on YouTube.
Damn. I can't
Virgin
believe
IMDb for
nothing?
Chad YouTube.
I can't believe we could have just gone to a YouTube channel. We spent all that
Yes,
time
you
going
could've.
through IMDb, going through
Yeah.
the
Well,
much
uses IMDb.
populated
Real talk, actually,
Christmas-like
I do
genre.
think IMDb is kind of annoying to use. Like, it never runs well whenever I use it. And I can never find what I'm looking for in it. So, like, that, there actually is kind of a strange reality subtext to that joke I just made.
I think the one voice I've looked up the most on IMDb is the person who voices Raz in Psychonauts. Not the lead actor of this, who I know his voice and his facial features.
And
Because,
indeed, certain sounds he makes that have permeated.
Yes.
Have permeated.
Yes, he was briefly mentioned in our second episode. We're talking about, of course, Santa Claus.
Yes.
Well,
Santa Claus, he's a very historical figure, very prolific movie career, primarily with the Hallmark Channel.
also
I
with,
thought most of the
stop
Hallmark
motion.
channel is just about, like, middle-aged women hooking up with dudes.
Yeah, no, see, that's the
don't
thing.
understand.
Hallmark movies are about, like, the person who doesn't have time for love finding love on Christmas. Santa's more in the
How
stop
come
motion
I've never been in one
genre.
then?
Well, I mean, Santa's sometimes plays, a side gig in those movies where it's like,
I'm just picturing some guy hiring Santa to, like, play a piano for his romantic date or something. Remember that scene from SpongeBob where, like, Mr.
Yeah.
Krabs takes his up on a date at the restaurant and they got the guy in the diving suit?
Yeah,
Playing the
Santa,
piano.
oh man,
Just picture a romantic Christmas dinner, but it's like Santa on a sleigh and with, like, a piano.
Santa's
like,
a
just
wedding
floating next to
DJ.
That'd be dope.
Nice. So, anyways, we should probably get into actually what we're talking about. So,
The most
this is-
horrifying and disturbing Christmas kids movie universes
Yes,
of all
dare
time.
I say it is relatively existential dread-inducing. We're talking about the Santa Claus trilogy
With an E.
Yes,
that one.
with an E.
E.
The Tim Allen vehicle. Let's just go straight into the fact corner. The first movie came out in '94.
That bugs me because for years I thought they were all early 2000s movies
Right,
because
so
I just
then-
saw them on Disney Channel.
So the second
And it-
movie came out in 2002, which means there was an 8-year gap between the first and second. And then
It
the
just
third
sat
one
around
was
for 8 years. It's
2004.
like, let's make another one.
No, the third
another
one was
one of these.
2006. So
Third
over
one
a
was
12-year
2006.
period, these movies came out.
Oh my gosh, did the Santa Claus 3 come out the same year that we did?
Was
In
that
2006?
I thought we was
I don't know.
07, but
I don't want
I don't
it to
know.
be true.
Well,
I don't-
so
It's
it's
giving me a
the
sense of existential dread. How
it
much time has
stars Tim
passed?
Allen as in the first movie he kills Santa and becomes Santa as per a contract written on a business card Santa has in his pocket.
That scene was going to be worse than the original. Like, there it's like he scares him, he falls off on accident, and originally Tim Allen was like, I think Tim Allen said he wanted this. I think, so don't quote me completely on this. But I think it said originally it's like, I was going to shoot him with a shotgun and kill him instead. But they're like, nah, that's too messed up.
Maroon 5's Bed Intruders, the Christmas movie. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're getting straight into it with the Santa
Yeah,
Claus one.
we're going in raw.
I want to back up
I
just
think about
a
it right.
little bit.
Me too.
Just a little bit.
We need to get a bit
Uh,
more
Pull out
space.
just a little bit. I'm doing that on purpose now.
So, one of the first things that really struck me about the movie is that it is made well. Like this is not something I can say about the later movies. I should add.
Yeah, I will say
Santa
that
Claus
it was a
1
dip in quality, especially in the third one.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about actually.
Yeah.
So, Santa Claus 1, the first 15 minutes are really good groundwork for the rest of the movie. Like,
Establishing
Tim
all the
Allen's
characters in the
character-
world and stuff.
yeah, Tim Allen's character is like immediately introduced as part of why the company had such a great year. He immediately like interrupts his partner and is like, oh yeah, have a great Christmas and whatever, because he just wants to get on with it. And like it shows then that he obviously kind of did that to sort of get out earlier so that he could come by to see his son, but then he obviously lies and is like, oh yeah, there's so much traffic, yeah, get on your side of the road. Like, he's immediately shown to be a distrustworthy and untrustworthy sort of like guy who still cares about his son, but is like,
Just kind of a jerk.
he's the distant divorced father.
Yeah, it's the whole like he works so much he doesn't have time for his son, but he wants to spend time with his son. It's the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon. Okay, but his son doesn't really want to spend time with him.
You meet his ex-wife and her stepdad, and these two become like morally better characters and more likable characters in sequels. But I got a lot to talk about these two in this first movie. But we'll
Right.
get more to that week in
So-
the plot, because these two got some issues in this first movie.
So I really want to say something that this movie especially hates single dads. There is a scene where Tim Allen fails to cook a turkey, almost burns his house down, and he's like, all right, we're just going to go to Denny's. And so they go to Denny's, and there's like a bunch of people having a Christmas party, and the waitress is like, are you with them? And he's like, no. And his son Charlie says he burnt the turkey, and the waitress is like, oh, right this way. And it's this like depressing shot of like a bunch of
like-
single dads and their kids just not enjoying themselves. All the kids look so disappointed.
The
And it's-
Mandalorian is the most positive depiction of a single dad in fiction.
This
It's
this,
surprising.
by the way,
Yeah,
is such a good joke.
I actually
Like,
hate it.
Okay, like here's the thing. It shows a sort of like distaste for single fathers, single parents in general, that is like really strange, especially in a movie that is specifically about a single dad.
I guess-
The joke itself is, in my opinion, crafted extremely well, even if the punchline is kind of really punching down. Which, speaking of which, by the way, this is actually the joke you just glossed over is a scene where Tim Allen says, "Oh, what? Everybody loves Denny's. Denny's is an American staple," and it hard cuts to the party, which is a bunch of Japanese businessmen. Now, here's a little fun fact. During the mid 80s and late 80s, during like sort of the post Cold War period, there was a lot of internal tension in America that we were going to be effectively like superseded by the Japanese.
I know, that's why I see it's always like in futures like Blade Runner and stuff, it's like Japanese stuff everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. This was specifically as a sort of like Blade Runner and stuff like that was actually supposed to be a little bit scary to audiences at the time, as a sort of like, we could be like overtaken by another culture. And nowadays it's actually
Nowadays
just
it's
a really
China.
dope. Yeah. Nowadays it's
China.
just like a dope aesthetic. But when I
Nowadays it's China
immediately
and Russia we're worried
saw
about. So it's the Cold War all over again, basically.
when I saw the Denny's joke, I was really scared about the direction that the movie was going to take. Like, it would suddenly start cutting in a lot of like strangely racist stuff.
Yeah, like the end of Christmas Story.
Yeah. Oh god.
My dad is like the only person on the planet I can think of who doesn't like a Christmas Story. Like,
After they get back from Denny's, Scott, which is
one
Tim
last thing
Allen's
about Denny's,
character.
I just want to bring up that I find kind of funny. It was they brought up in the Mr. Sunday Movies review where it's like, it's so weird that this is a product placement in the movie because it's not positive at all. It doesn't portray Denny's in like a positive light at all, is like the funny thing. It's like just sad, like people there, and it's just like, like almost like a joke, like Denny's is a staple of American culture, and just like, it's not really a nice portrayal of it, It's like, for example,
Yeah,
you get
it's-
E.T. with Reese's Pieces, it's like, Reese's Pieces, this is good, but it's like, oh, Denny's, yay.
They
Yeah,
must
Denny's
have
was a
paid
depressing place
Denny's.
in America.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get home. Scott reads Charlie a bedtime story. It's just 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. They get into a weird sort of like conversation about the word clatter, and then they
don't
hear
remember
on
that
the
at all.
roof a clatter, and they go out, and that's when Scott's sure he's certain that this is like a burglar, and he runs out and he yells, "Hey!" and then Santa dies by
Yeah,
falling off the
already
roof in an
falls off.
exaggerated
15 minutes
pattern.
in.
Yeah,
Say, Happy Christmas.
it's-
Santa's dead.
but it's pretty
Yeah,
good
that-
pace for the actually getting to the point of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't waste too much time. Also, that
That-
fall does not look lethal. I don't want to
Yeah,
try it out.
he
because,
falls into,
watch
like-
it. I'll prove it by falling off the roof and then I
At
die.
least
in
a
real
foot of
life.
snow.
Yeah, he falls into a foot of snow and like he waves before he deflates
Oh,
into
yeah,
nothingness.
that's the thing. Scott's like, "Oh, he's dead. I need to get help." And then Santa cuts away, and Santa's waving. He wasn't dead when Scott read the business card. So yeah, Scott reads the business card. He says, "It's like whoever
Santa
puts on the
took his
suit
Holly Jolly
becomes
cyanide
Santa."
pill after he fell off of the roof.
Oh no, he was compromised. He goes up on the roof along with Charlie, which my favorite joke in the movie is when it shows the like K-Mac ladder, because
Yeah.
Charlie keeps thinking he's saying ladder when he says clatter, and so
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
the-
kind of brought back for no reason.
It's the rose such a clatter,
Right, the rose such a clatter.
which is again just a really good joke.
What happens next is like they get into the sleigh, they meet the reindeer, and Charlie's like,
The reindeers
"Whoa."
have really annoying voices in these movies for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it when they talk at all. It's like, who thought that was a good voice for the reindeer?
Well, one of them does in the next movie.
Oh yeah.
So Charlie is like, "Dad, why don't you put on the suit?" And Scott's like, "No." And Charlie's like, "Come on." Scott's like, "Okay." Then it's, "Why don't you get in the sleigh?" "Fine." "Why don't you put on the hat?" "Okay."
Why don't you literally do the Santa thing and like go
Yeah,
around the world
exactly.
and present people? and
Exactly.
eat cookies?
Literally, for the next like 10 minutes or so, Charlie just slowly coaxes Scott into putting on everything, and then he
He just
Why
delivers
is
makes
she
presents.
breaking and entering?
Yeah, and then he delivers
Okay.
presents very poorly.
Like
It's
he
like,
screams at like a little girl and stuff.
yeah. And then by the end of the night, he seems to be enjoying it. But then the next day, he thinks it's a dream, even though clearly there's like stuff Charlie remembers as well.
There's still the blood stains from where Santa fell off of the roof outside.
Yeah. And then like the rest of the movie happens, and the rest of it
I
is,
like how you describe that. I'm sorry. That just cracks me up. It's like
yeah.
goes over some plot points, and then the rest of the movie happens. That's
Well,
basically
so,
how
like,
you sum up stories.
Most of
This
the rest of the
happens in the first
movie is the same thing. It's just like he slowly becomes Santa. Nobody believes him. Everybody thinks he and Charlie are delusional. And the whole time they're trying to get Charlie away from Scott because they think he's a bad influence. And
I want to talk more about this.
So-
But like, first of all, the Santa. Well, everyone's joked about the Santa Claus, Santa curse kind of thing. You know what I think is kind of so funny about this is that, in terms of Santa curse, it is most reminiscent of like old werewolf lore. I mean, like really old werewolf lore, where it was like German specifically, where the idea of it was like it wasn't like a monster transformation like we think of it today. It was more like a voluntary thing where you made some deal with a demon and like you get this creepy belts made of like wolf skin. and you wear it and you turn into like a wolf monster. It's like that. He like puts on Santa's clothes and he like slowly turns into him throughout the whole thing. And it like
Santification.
Yeah.
Tim Allen's Santa Claus is basically an old
Sanctification.
eldritch German lore werewolf, basically. Like, yeah, like you just kill the, and I think actually Goosebumps brought back a similar idea of all things. Like, if you kill a werewolf and wear a skin, you turn into one. So, yeah, so Santa Claus in these movies is basically a werewolf. Or at least old, creepy German lore werewolf.
I'll be
And-
a werewolf, Santa Claus.
He gets really hairy, so that's kind of counts, you know.
Yeah.
So, but before we get into why
The parents.
and also honestly why the entire world kind of fucking sucks in this movie, I do want to say a couple points about the production value.
Oh, it's noticeably better than the other two, especially 3.
Yes. So, like, there is CGI, and it being mid-90s, it is kind of poor CGI. The reindeer, whenever they're flying, and with the sleigh, it's always kind of crap. The first chimney that they go down when he
the
gets
stretch one
spat
that was in the
back out-
trailers.
Yeah, when he gets spat back out, it has the worst warping I've seen in any professional media. It is hilarious. But CGI aside, this is also mid-90s where they would still go through the painstaking effort to build an entire set
Instead
for
of just
like
blue screen.
yeah. And so like pretty much everything that isn't CGI is fucking fantastic, and that stays pretty much the same through the rest of it. Like
Well, they use the same set.
all of the elf sets are really, really well done. The Elf Town Square looks very nice.
Oh, right. I forgot
the
that after he delivers the presents, but before he wakes up at home, he does go to the North Pole.
yeah, I was about to mention that is that he goes to the North Pole, and there's this whole kind of thing of like, no, take me back home. No, you put on the suit, you're Santa now.
Santa now, that's
And-
how it works.
Yeah, and then he falls asleep and wakes up and he's like, oh, it's a dream.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and everyone's pointed this out too, like the whole Santa Claus, Santa curse thing. But yeah, like the elves are like way too comfortable with the idea that the previous Santas just did.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
how many
will
Santas
say,
died before him, like to make them comfortable with this?
yeah, I
There's
will
like-
say, like the elves are all hundreds of years old, so like I feel like it's one of those
It kind of
things
becomes
of like,
sadly jaded with death, where it's just like,
Yeah.
we've
yeah, it's we
outlived it.
understand.
most of the Santas have died from old age at this point. Like
So what's-
occasionally one who falls off the roof like him, but yeah, we've accepted the inevitability of
Yeah.
death. You get used to it. You gotta go numb.
Though, so what's notable is when Scott gets up there, they start making all these like fixes to the suit of like, making it flame proof and stuff like that. But whenever he brings up falling off the roof, they just brush him aside. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Maybe
go
it's like
back to this after the third movie because
Maybe it's
I
like-
have a theory about all this.
Maybe it's like a natural selection thing where it's just like there's a certain life cycles to Santas and we can't interfere with the natural cycle. Like fire isn't supposed to kill Santa, but over falling off a roof is. It's like
yeah, it's
a
one of the natural causes of death: old age,
yeah, like
it's
it's like a
disease,
great white
falling off
shark
a
isn't
roof.
supposed to kill ants, but an anteater is. Where it's like that kind of thing. Like we can't interfere with that.
So, basically, the stakes of the movie is that Scott is trying to convince everybody else that
That he's Santa.
he's Santa, or he's trying to get Charlie to not be so obsessed with it because, like, everybody thinks that Charlie is, like I said, delusional, and he's just super obsessed.
Now I want to talk about how kind of messed up this is and how like crazy. Are we
well-
talking about the parents now or no?
Well, I just want to finish off this with that. It takes like an entire year before it jumps through the year really quickly. Like it's
because it starts at
winter.
Christmas and it ends at the next Christmas.
Right.
Yeah.
It's winter and then like it's summer and he's at Charlie's soccer game and then it's back to winter again. And by the time it comes back to winter, Scott's kind of come back around and is accepting of being Santa. And there's some bookending with like one of the people he meets when he's first Santa in the first act.
also, actually, to sidebar the parent conversation, because before
I'll get back to
full
that.
into parent, there's a side thing that happens where he goes back to his old job and he's fat.
like a toy. He's like a toy
Yeah,
executive,
like
right?
he gained a bunch of weight and he's like woken up to go back to his old job and he's like, oh shit, I'm fat and I've got a beard. And so he like shows up in his sweats and everybody's kind of like, holy shit, what happened to you? And he's like, whatever, let's just continue.
Tim Allen noise.
And
Whatever.
the point of this scene is that, like, there's a joke where everybody else is like, I'll have a lean salad, and he's like, yes, I'll have a Caesar salad and a cookie and cheesecake and ice cream.
He's fat, so he likes food now, huh?
Yeah, it's he's fat, he likes food. And then there's the scene where it's like, okay, we're going to sell our product, and Santa's at the North Pole with his elves, and he's like, the elves don't look like that, and it's like, okay, he's going to ride a tank, and he's like, he doesn't ride a fucking tank, and then he gets
this becomes kind of
out.
funny in the second movie in hindsight. But we'll wait till we get to that.
But the reason that I want to bring up the play-by-play is specifically because his coworkers treat him like dog shit. Like, his coworkers are so judgy and asshole-ish. And, like, here's the thing. Thinking in the logic of the movie, obviously gaining a whole bunch of weight over no time at all, certainly I can accept that in universe it's like, holy shit, you just gained a bunch of weight immediately. Are you good?
And like judgy of him. I'd be like, dude, you grew a beard and gained you're completely different body type. It's like overnight. What happened? Like, I'm kind of scared.
Yeah,
I would be like, he's fat now. Let's be mean to him. Like,
yeah, but then it's like, he orders food and they're all really pissy and judgy at him, and his boss is all like, oh, you done with that ice cream? And it's like, it's so, like, is this what the 90s was just like? You were 200 pounds and it was like, well, you're less than human now.
I don't think this was a 90s thing. I think this was just like a dumb kids movie thing.
I mean, also, I do want to say they kind of imply that Santa's diet is sweets because, like, he starts craving milk. In that same scene, he orders milk to drink. And then, like,
it's like
throughout the rest of the series,
his diet, like,
right, throughout the rest of the series, he, like, only drinks cocoa and eats, like, cookies. There's not much other food that he really consumes.
Okay, so back to the werewolf thing. Is Santa almost kind of like a species in this universe? With, like, a very specific, like, dietary preference to keep it alive,
Well, I want to touch on that at some point, but I think we can talk about the parents.
Okay, so the parents kind of...
Let's unpack.
The parents kind of mess with me in this movie. Okay, so you meet... all the parents are kind of jerks and have to learn to not be jerks. Like, Tim Allen's kind of a jerk. His ex-wife and her new husband are kind of jerks. But the ex-wife and husband... We covered Tim Allen, but the ex-wife and husband interest me in... just kind of baffle me, where it's just like, okay, so the kid really, really likes Santa Claus, and okay, Ari's kind of obsessed, but everyone is like obsessed with things as kids, right? And and his parents are like obsessed to make it be like, no, Santa Claus is not real, and like lecturing him and all this stuff, and like his stepdad will like drill him on all this stuff. Where it's like, how can you deliver all the presents to the world? And like the kid even has like responses like, dude, like not everyone is like celebrates Christmas and all this other stuff.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite line.
I really like that.
We're just like, dude, this is like. Yeah, like, I do like that explanation now. It's actually like acknowledged. It's like, dude, like not everyone celebrates it, but like, yeah, he's like obsessed with like, no, you will denounce Santa Claus. It's like, dude, you're acting so weird. It's like a little kid believing in fantastical stuff isn't that weird, and the reveal for why it's just so unbelievably petty, and it's supposed to be like a sad scene too, where you're supposed to feel like bad for them, but it's like, wow, you two are like idiots, like man children. I don't feel bad for either of you. Where they're both just kind of butthurt because they didn't get this one specific present they wanted from Santa when they were kids, and they're all like butthurt and annoyed about that. It's like, I don't believe in Santa. It's like, shut up, like,
Yeah,
Christmas Sunday movies made a point in this review that this will bug me forever now, and I can't unthink this in these kind of plots for movies. Okay, so in these kinds of movie universes where fantastical holiday equivalent, like the two fairies in one, but close enough, kind of creatures are definitively real. Like, the Easter Bunny is a character who actually, objectively, factually, literally exists in this universe. He leaves baskets of candy and eggs, That is a thing. How come people don't believe in, like, characters, Like, little kids not believing in Santa arguably makes sense because they could assume, oh, that's their parents doing it. But how come adults don't believe in Santa? Because It's like, if you, like, who wakes up and, like, on Christmas morning, walk downstairs, go to the Christmas tree. It's like, well, cool, Dad, check it out. I got the Xbox 5 or whatever under my tree. It's like, I didn't buy that for you. I made it very clear I would never buy that for you. Could that be? There must be some weird phenomenon involving blizzards that just causes Xboxes to spawn under Christmas trees. There's no way Santa is real.
The
like,
whole,
how come you don't believe me?
The whole premise of this, or the whole like conflict, is because the parents don't believe in Santa when everybody that celebrates Christmas has at least gotten a present from Santa.
Yeah, and like not their parents, and even like this could be like you could probably find enough information like in universe, even though because it's weird because they try to keep Santa secret. We'll cover that more in the second one though, kind of. But still, like things like that, like hey, do you remember getting him that present? No, then it was Santa, not you, you idiot. You know.
Though
like,
I do have to wonder.
Put logic together. You should know that like he's probably real or something equivalent. You know, like.
I do have to wonder if Santa just didn't give them those gifts they wanted when they were kids, though.
Well,
Like,
I also kind of wonder
the
that
one thing we can't make is the Oscar Mayer Wiener weenie whistle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
didn't have
it's
the
the one
technology
thing we
back
can't
then.
make.
He wasn't advanced. Santa's technology wasn't advanced enough back then, which
Santa-
could actually be a thing because yeah, they improved the suit a bunch, but keep glancing over the roof thing, you know.
Santa
But,
just doesn't have the copyright.
Yeah, that too.
Copyright
Yeah, Santa have
has
to pay the
gone too
copyright
far.
for like toys that exist to make them. Or also, here's another thing that I always thought of as a kid, though, that I always kind of wondered too. Maybe they were just naughty kids. That's why they didn't get presents.
Maybe.
Like, they never acknowledged
Yeah.
that. You didn't give me the
But
Oscar
then-
Mayer weenie whistle. Where it's like, yeah, you also like beat up a kid in the bathroom and gave him a wedgie at school. Of course, I'm not gonna give you that. You're a naughty kid.
But then, wouldn't they have coal?
Maybe
Like,
he.
wait, like, here's the thing.
Should
Okay, so here's the thing. I will buy some sort of like outside of lore explanation where it's like, oh, the magic also tricks the parents into thinking that they bought it. I'll accept something like that. I'll accept a
Some-
hand wave.
Like if
But,
they
like-
just kind of retconned it to that, it's like, yeah, I'll buy that. Like, you know.
Yeah, but they show in the second that when they mean coal for naughty kids, they mean literal, actual lumps of coal.
yeah.
How do you explain that?
Yeah, like.
Imagine how
Logically, how do you
traumatizing that
explain
would be.
Well, here's something funny about that. My dad used to work at a power plant, and one year, like he, for being naughty, but he actually did bring back some actual coal.
Holy.
And what's funny is that it backfired because I'm like, oh, cool, I want to keep this. It's like, no, that's gross. I didn't want you to actually keep that. It stood all over the floor.
I'll
It's like,
treasure
it's cool. It's like,
forever.
cool. I could roleplay my times and take it to trains, pretending I got actual coal. It's like no, this backfired horribly. Give it back. Like,
Here's another thing too, by the way, about like one of the things that I really like about the first one is how it stays pretty grounded despite having the fantastical elements because it balances the
2 and 3
It-
get a lot more whimsical and crazy with it, but here it's
Yeah.
like pretty standard. Like you got the fantasy world of like Santa Claus in the Elf Village. Like
it balances
him
very
being like a
well.
normal, like modern '90s at the time world. While in the second one, you got things like robots, and third one, you got time travel. You know.
I forgot about the actual climax of the movie. He takes Charlie with him on the present ride, and the parents, the parents
Assuming
are
he got
convinced that he was kidnapped, and so they put out like all police bulletin, just like look for a guy who looks like Santa, and so the police
It just becomes
profile
like the Nightmare
people.
Before Christmas, where like they're trying to gun down Santa in the sleigh.
The police address just a bunch of people dressed like Santa, which turns out to be a lot of people. And then Tim Allen actually goes in to deliver the presents, and then he gets arrested. Then there is a special ops squad of elves called Elfs, ELFS, whose sole
It's an
purpose it
acronym.
is to break Santa out of prison. They do that. Then Santa returns to the house, and that's when the mom sees him and immediately is just like, oh, it's okay, Neil. We don't need to have him arrested anymore. And Charlie's back again. All is well. Santa gives them the presents they wanted when they were kids. And
they're both like, we're sorry for being jerks to you and jerks
Yeah.
to your kid, and they become like
then-
good guys. And they're very nice for the rest of the movies.
yeah, and then Santa rides off in a sleigh. Everyone's happy. But then he comes back when all the crowds have died, and he's like, hi, I thought we were going to end the movie, but I want to end the movie again. So here's Charlie. How about you just hold on to
Lord
him
of the
for
Rings,
now?
Return of the King.
Yeah, how about you hold on for him to now? I need to end the movie again. It's like there's two ending scenes. It would have been fine with one or the other, but it's just like the emotional payoff happens twice.
Which also, by the way, fun Christmas movie for kids. Hey, kids, do you like seeing Santa die and then get arrested
Yeah.
and then have his house stormed by SWAT?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
when they break Santa out of prison, they tie the guard up with like wrapping paper or something, and it is the most 90s like family movie effect.
Yeah.
It's high speed spinning a guy around in a chair, and there's like fun sound effects, like woo, kind of whistle sounds. and I'm just like,
I'd even out.
oh my god, it's just like it hit me like a truck.
It's like looking at like Shrek or the Raimi Spider-Man movies or the Star Wars prequels or Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or Drake and Josh or
It's
Santa Claus
unfiltered
2.
era of
cheese.
where it just takes you right back to that era of like the early 2000s, but for here it's like the 90s.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of. It's funny you bring up that very like I got exactly what you said, that very 90s effect.
I think I have exactly one last thing to bring up, and only because it's a through line into the second movie and the third movie. The very last line that like Neil has is that Charlie says something, and Neil's like, "You're going to be a great psychiatrist one day," and Neil's like, "Thanks, but I'm interested in the family business." Which,
yes.
ouch,
Yes.
kid.
This
After
is the best part.
after like having this entire heart to heart with Tim Allen, where Tim Allen's like, "Hey, look, I can't be selfish. You got to be with your other family, bro.
Yeah.
You know, you got their family too, and I got a lot of other kids to see."
Well, to be fair,
Charlie-
the whole movie Neil was a terrible psychiatrist, as I brought up earlier.
Which
Charlie
is true.
just goes, "I will commit patricide."
Yeah, like
Sorry.
Charlie's just like, "Sorry, but I want to go into what my real dad is in."
Which involves
you
killing my
don't.
real dad. I need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make that clear.
Yeah, I'm gonna murder my dad and like wear his skin and become the new Santa Claus.
I do want to mention, they keep saying Neil's not a doctor. Psychiatrists are the ones that actually can like prescribe medicine. Psychologists cannot. So
Yeah.
like the whole
Maybe
basically
meant
they
it to
just
be-
treat Neil like shit, even though he's kind of up his own ass a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's like a weird mix because on one hand it's like, oh, they're treating him like garbage. On the other hand, he is kind of a piece of garbage.
But they treat him like garbage about things that aren't things that are garbage. Like he
Where
wears
it's-
sweaters.
Okay, you
in-
deserve to be treated badly for that, but you don't
Every-
deserve to be treated badly
every
for that. It's
time-
the same with Tim Allen's character, you know. You
Right.
deserve to be treated like garbage for being a jerk. You don't deserve to be treated like garbage for being fat. Like,
Right. Every time Scott sees Neil, he's like, nice sweater, and a gross sweater, and it's just like it's a sweater. Like who gives a shit?
I
It's
do,
just a
I
sweater.
do.
That's
I
also
do
why,
like
like,
the
all
through
the-
line of the joke.
That's
of,
also why-
of like how consistent that joke is. That in every
Yeah.
movie they make fun of the sweater.
It's
but
just
like, yeah.
it's just oddly
everybody
like
hates Neil.
toxic masculinity sort of thing.
Speaking of toxic, more on that in the third movie with those in-laws.
One nice thing I like about this series is that it shows a divorced couple that used to be a couple having a good relation after they were divorced.
Yes.
There's only one
Yes.
other kids movie that does this, and I will say does it better, is Night at the Museum.
Like, yeah, the fact that there is a divorced couple and there isn't some kind of force, like, you know, oh, but then they get back together because they love each other, and like it's just sort of, you know, accepted that they're divorced and they're just fine, they're just friends afterwards. Like that is
At the end, they hate each
such
other.
a rarity, especially in the 90s.
Well, it's
Like,
they
it
really
is-
only like each other after the first movie.
Okay,
Yeah,
They're
like,
tolerant of each
all the
other.
adults being jerks to each other. Like all the adults are terrible in the first movie. The whole
But,
movie, the
like-
first movie actually is like the redemption arc for all the adult characters. And I do think that is on purpose because all the kid characters, I'm counting the elves when I say this too, they're all played by kids, are all portrayed as nice and good, but all the adults are like cranky, mean jerks who hate each other and everything. And by the end, it's like, man, we're all jerks. We should be nicer people, you know.
Okay.
So, anything to close with, Matt, before we move on to
No,
number
but-
two?
One last thing I wanted to bring up about the first movie, that divorce thing, and Mr. Sunday Movies brought this up, and this is an oddly specific, weird subgenre, I guess, for lack of a better term, of kids' movies that was very prevalent in like the 90s and nowhere else. There was always a story about some divorced dad who's like a jerk and hates his kids, mean to him, but he goes on some whimsical adventure where he has to become some certain thing and reconnect with his family. And these movies always star Tim Allen or Robin Williams. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
like the Santa Claus, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jungle to Jungle, Pan. Not all of them completely fit this. For example, Mrs. Doubtfire is like a bit different. He's not really a jerk. He's just like a man-child, and that causes problems. But yeah, all the same basic formula, you know? This
Yeah.
very oddly specific thing. And I'm curious, like I said I don't think the fat thing was a 90s thing. I'm wondering if this was. Was there like a higher rate of like divorced dads in the 90s or something?
Maybe
Or
it
at least
just,
like dad just stayed away from home for too long because there
maybe
wasn't
it
a
just
Pan. Or not Panhook.
I don't know, maybe divorces became more like socially acceptable? Hard to say.
Shit, yeah, actually, that's a good ass
Because
point.
you kind of stop seeing these movies after the 90s. The only one I can think of, again, is Night at the Museum, and that plays a relatively minor part in that, like all things considered.
Guys, I hate to interrupt all of this incredibly,
we need to move on.
you know,
I'm just
nice
basically
and
done. We need to move on.
understated, you know, like realistic discussion, but unfortunately a plane has just flown over the podcast looking for oil.
We gotta
yeah.
get Elfcon 1. We gotta Am I allowed to say we gotta blast it down, or will we be banned for that? It's a fake plane. I'm not threatening anyone.
No, we just have to hide our podcast. Nobody play any Christmas music.
Turn on incognito mode. Google will never find us then.
Sir, I'm hearing whinging. Yeah, so the second movie opens with
that scene. We were parodying that scene.
This scene. Okay, first of all, I don't know how the U.S. finds oil. I'm not going to claim to be a particularly, important figure in the oil industry. I don't think
you are a very important figure in the U.S. government, though. Don't downplay that.
Well, okay, that is true.
He was the Secretary of Defense. It's just that Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and whoever the current president is, depending on when this gets released, never talked about him. He's very humble about his job. Yeah, Galen's Secretary of Defense.
I basically like the spy master. I'm behind the guy who you see on TV. I shouldn't be telling you this because I will have to kill every listener and my co-host.
Men in Black. You can just use the auditory version of the mind eraser thing you made. And you saved a bunch of bodies, Weasel. Thank you.
You're hired.
Yeah,
thank you.
You've done a great service.
Cricket. Instead of his cat just being a cricket, it's a weasel, which explains a lot since he's a member of the U.S. government.
So it opens with this weird canvassing scene, and I don't know.
There's this oil canvassing scene, and Elfcon is a good time.
Oil, so they can use it for their oil paintings.
It's like they wanted to start in media res, but they didn't have anything for them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it's not Christmas yet, so we can't make them do Christmas stuff.
If you want an action opening like that, it'd be he's delivering his presents, but like I said, it's not Christmas yet. So I guess we hide from the north. The opening of it is just Santa Claus, in the wild. It's like Conan the Barbarian. It's to Mount Santa in the wilderness, battling a walrus.
The only thing I can think of. Wait, no, it's the polar bear. It's the deadliest killer in the animal kingdom.
The deadliest killers in the animal kingdom. I was going to say, well, this is dangerous too, but then I realized you're going for the Superman joke.
The most I can think of is that it's trying to further the point that, Santa has to stay a secret.
Even though the movies are very inconsistent with this, because the first movie was about everyone accepting he was Santa.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to jump forward too much, but, in the third movie, it's made a big point that it's you gotta keep the SOS, the secret is Santa. But, in the first movie, in the first movie, there's an entire
Santa died because of that. The first Santa that appeared in the movies died because of that. He didn't keep the secret well at all.
There's an entire neighborhood that sees Santa, basically confirmed. And in the second one, there's a very similar thing where he rides off in the end, and a bunch of people just see him. So good job keeping a fucking secret, Santa.
Santa Claus 2 is the Mrs. Claus. The premise of the plot this time is that Scott needs to find a wife to be Mrs. Claus, or else he ceases to be Santa. What actually happens if he ceases to be Santa is never made clear. It's kind of brought up that the elves will be out of a job.
Couldn't they just get a new Santa?
No, see, here's the thing. They never say that. It's not we just find somebody else to wear the suit. The only thing they really say is that... There's
literally no explanation for what will happen. There's no consequences.
The only thing they say is that there's no Santa and that the elves won't be doing anything if that happens.
Which I get, I guess it's a butterfly effect where it's no Santa means elves can't work, means,
no presents
no
on
toys,
Christmas, which means depressed kids, which means angry adults, which means World War III.
That's also why I did like these movies too much as a little kid. Going back to the first one briefly, with all the adults being jerks, everything's just kind of unpleasant. It's just people being cranky and being rude to each other the whole movie. You're not it's just everyone's just mean to everyone, and it's just all of you are jerks. I don't like any of you.
I have very little good to say about this this movie, but one of the two scenes that I want to compliment is actually in the opening, and it really should have been the opening of the movie. Because after they go to ElfCon and then the
after they go to ElfCon, it sounds like a lure, but that made it sound more like a convention. Let's go to ElfCon, everybody. I'm going to go as Legolas. He's going to go as what was his name? Rudolph. Yeah, him. He's going to go as him. I'll go as our favorite elves.
I do actually like elf. I like a lot of the elf puns. The elf puns are pretty good.
I'd rather go to Goblin Con. Goblins are more funny. Less Normans
But
there.
like after they have the plane scare, there's an entire scene where Tim is just, I'm going to call him Tim Allen. I'm going to call him either Tim Allen or Santa.
I had to like confirm the last one. Neil's a stepdad, by the way. We never said his name. We just called him the stepdad.
Yeah, but like Santa is just out on the floor, and he's just helping a bunch of different elves. He's just like, he's tuning up a toy car.
Good job with that skateboard. Like,
this
he's
is
helping out. He doesn't do nothing. He actually helps out and makes toys and stuff. Like at the place.
It is one of the two best scenes in the entire movie, because like Tim Allen plays a very good, like, heartwarming, kind Santa. It is.
Yeah, he does a good job when he actually has to be Santa. He's like, oh, he's just this nice, fun, friendly guy, and he's like helping out everybody. But like the movie's like on and off. The problem with the movies in general is that they're on and off of how much he is Santa. Like, I get the first one because that's supposed to be the origin, how he becomes Santa. But the other ones, they switch between, let's make him Santa and let's make him just kind of grouchy Tim Allen's character,
Right, this is a palindromic sort of reversal of the first movie. So we meet Curtis, who is the symbol of the folly of man, man's hubris. So they tell Santa about the Mrs. Claus, which is an even smaller font than the Santa Claus.
Universe more horrifying because it's like, okay, you need a wife no matter what. So, okay, a few questions about the Mrs. Claus thing.
Right, yes, I have a list of fucked up things.
It's happened 8 years later, and they say it's super important. It's like, why did you tell them this early? The real answer is because they need to make a sequel, and they didn't know how they do that 8 years later, But
I want to hear your itemized list, Matt, because like I also have quite an itemized list.
I got a whole list. Okay, so there's so many problems. So he needs a wife, right? Okay, there's so many things. Okay, what if they're like gay, or they're like I'm asexual and like won't have a wife? What if they already have a wife? Does she become Mrs. Claus, or does she like cease to exist and you need to find a new one? Like, what happened to the old Mrs. Claus? Did she just die? That one also got me too, because that implies that for that one Santa that she had a Mrs. Claus and she died too.
This is it. Are you ready for my movie postulation?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what postulation means.
My movie postulation is that the Santa falling off the roof was a setup by the elves because that Santa didn't want to find a Mrs. Claus. Because if Santa doesn't find a Mrs. Claus, the elves are left to like this weird, miserable limbo existence. And so they needed to kill Santa. They needed to kill Santa, so they set him up to fall off the roof of somebody who's single and believes in Santa Claus to some extent. And so this is my theory. And the reason why they're not telling Scott like anything about fixing the falling off the roof problem is because that would mean that he would be like, why didn't you do that for the last Santa? And they didn't want to call to attention that they sabotaged it.
That I like this theory. I support this theory 100%.
Because people have brought up how in the first movie Santa falls like way too obviously, and he goes like whoa, and it's like a flat rooftop as well. And even when Charlie goes up there, he doesn't fall.
And he's like a kid. Yeah, also, that's something that got me too. Like, mild child endangerment, even as a kid, this bothered me, where it's like, dude, like, that guy just died when he fell off the roof. You're gonna let your kid walk up there?
Well, to be fair, Charlie just ran up there anyways. Up to such a ladder.
I like how for every moment where there's like a dumb thing, it's like, well, to be fair, also this other dumb thing. Right. Like, he was doing this, well, to be fair, Charlie was a dumb little kid. Fair point. They're being a jerk to Neil. Well, to be fair, Neil was a jerk. Good point.
Oh, well,
like, good point. Yeah. Like, Tim Allen was a jerk too. Like, it's like, it's a constant, it's like double negatives canceling each other out.
So yeah, after that, it cuts to my favorite scene of the movie, which is when Charlie is now 8 years older than he was in the first movie, and he's with his friend. Yeah, and he tags the school gym with graffiti.
That's how I know he's.
It's specifically graffiti that is like Principal Newman equals Christmas tree X'd out. And, like, Newman hates Christmas.
Yeah.
Also, before it's completely done, I need to throw into the aether for all future reference of this podcast. One of my least favorite things in a like forced sequel is when they like retcon in unsolved business into the previous one. Like, if there was a white strip somewhere on that card that you could feasibly be like, this is actually text, I would be like, fine. But no, the gag is that it's literally so small that like you need the biggest magnifying glass to see it. And it's just like, okay, movie, I don't like when movies do that. I don't like when movies retrofit a sequel.
Right.
It's very clear that, like I said, where it's like, why did it, like, I don't know, they went 8 years without a wife. Well, oh wait, we need a sequel. Okay, he needs a wife.
Okay, so Charlie is kind of estranged from Scott. Tim
and he's
Allen.
on the naughty list now. That's
Yeah,
like a big
he's
thing.
on the naughty list. Tim Allen needs to investigate why Charlie's on the naughty list, and he needs to find a Mrs. Claus, but he still needs to be there because they need to get Christmas together, and they need somebody
Curtis,
to lead.
the new elf, and his folly of man, he has this machine that, like, he's at rivals with Bernard, the previous head elf of the movie, because Bernard's more of like a traditionalist, more conservative in how he wants to run the place, but he's like, I want to embrace new ideas and technology, and I'm gonna make this tube, this weird robot cloning vat thing that I can use to make toys more efficiently. It can shrink things, it can grow things, and make duplicates. So he uses that. He's like, here's the folly of man that Matt was talking about. Curtis is like, I'm gonna use this to make like a toy robot duplicate man of Santa to take his place so he can fill in for him.
Yes.
So he puts him in there, and you get this weird moment where like he comes out and they freak out like, he's naked, and he sees footsteps like, so did that give him genitalia? Why would you program that in there? Like, I don't know.
He needs to look realistic.
He doesn't though. He's like made of rubber and plastic. His beard is clearly like rubber and plastic.
Right. So Scott goes home. He talks to Charlie. Charlie's like, yeah, whatever. And
Also,
during this whole time, Tim Allen starts to date Principal Newman named Carol. Yes, I said that really weirdly. It's Carol is her first name. That's what she's usually referred to by.
Also,
Carol.
yeah, it literally took me until near the end of the third movie to realize the pun there. And when I did, I was like, I hate this series so much.
Well, Tim Allen's character is...
Going back to like how Tim Allen doesn't get to be Santa Claus enough is the whole thing. You know how you'll hear actors like complain about this, you know, like how many superhero movies are like, I want to show up my face instead of wear the mask. Like they find some stupid convoluted excuse to get Spider-Man's mask off at the end of every movie. I feel like it's something like that's going on in these movies because every movie has a point where Tim Allen has to not be Santa. He turns back into a normal human. And it's because Tim Allen kept complaining about like all the prosthetics and the fat suit he had to wear. So I think that's why every movie the plot is also like, I also have to not be Santa for a lot of the movie. And it's very noticeable because they always find a way to shoehorn that in.
Right. So as Tim Allen is dating Carol, he's slowly turning back into Tim Allen, which it might be scarier than the first movie.
Yes. You want to know how it's scarier? You want to know how we know it's scarier? Because Toy Santa is just Tim Allen.
Yeah. So
Toy Santa is the most overacted character in cinema.
So the whole time they've got that going on, Curtis and Bernard are doing like this sort of weekend at Bernie's type thing where they're trying to convince all the elves that Santa is real. I mean, that Toy Santa is the real Santa. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
That is a good way to describe it. But the problem is you get the whole cliche where, you know, like the robot and his robot brain cannot comprehend human emotions because he's reading like the naughty list. He's like, all these kids are naughty. They're doing bad things. Where it's like, well, that's not equal. Like picking your nose isn't really naughty. That's just kind of gross. Where it's like, nope, all the kids are naughty. And okay, so remember the first, I put a pin in it. First movie, Santa doesn't ride around a tank. Santa doesn't ride around a Panzer. He decides to convert it into a fascist dictatorship and comes out just like Benito Mussolini. He's like, yeah, everybody, hey, guess what? Yeah, all the kids are naughty. We're just gonna give them coal. Also, I built this army of like giant, awkwardly walking Nutcracker toy soldier people and they aren't a threat like at all.
So, I have asked Matt to splice in the way that I took notes for this specific episode was I have myself a Olympus recorder, a Olympus like 8000 or something like that. It's really fucking old, and I just took audio notes and then played it back to myself to write down physical notes. I asked Matt specifically to splice in 2 audio segments, and the first one is my reaction to when they eventually cut back to Santa at the North Pole after some time.
Yeah,
if you would just like to,
I'll just play it now.
Toy Santa is literally wearing fucking like authoritarian Nazi uniform. Holy shit.
Yeah, I had forgotten the entire like getup he wears. It is horrible, but also incredible that this exists in a movie.
If
See,
more of the movie was spent with that toy Santa, I legitimately would have liked this movie better, because that
he's
is
such an over-the-top villain, and he's so, like...
Yeah, he turns
ridiculous.
the North Pole into a coal mine.
Yeah, and he comes out, like, he brings up the uniform. Yeah, it's literally like what Benito Mussolini wore when he established, like, the fascist dictatorship of Italy. Like,
Right.
that whole get-up with, like, the black outfit and the little floppy hat and stuff.
I have another movie
And it's clear
postulation
that Tim
about
Allen
this.
is having fun playing this evil toy Santa, because, like Galen puts it best, he is, like, the most overacted character in, like, these movies.
Yeah.
It's just him walking around just, like, screaming at people. Mr.
you-
Sunday Movies actually had a funny theory on this, because, like I said, Tim Allen complained a lot about the Santa prosthetics and stuff, and he joked it's like he had a kind of a common with his real life character. He was like yelling at kids and getting kind of annoyed because it's all sweaty. But it's like, I think this was him. You have an excuse to just act mean and rude to everyone on the set, and he just took it.
So you want to talk about overacting? My second favorite scene is Tim Allen and Toy Santa are on the sleigh, and they're like trying to grab something. They're fighting over something, and the whole time they're just dropping one-liners back and forth. It's like a rap battle, but instead of bars, it's dumb one-liners. I'm just like, did Tim Allen write all of these in his dressing room?
You know what's kind of funny? Because I saw the trailer for this movie, and it doesn't really put emphasis on the Toy Santa subplot at all. But you know what's so funny? Because the whole Toy Santa subplot feels like something they would bank on. It'd be like a gimmick movie, like one of those gimmick movies where it's an excuse to get an actor to play a certain thing, or to act like Jack and Jill, Adam Sandler, both playing Adam Sandler, but one's a girl. This feels like it'd be like that, like Tim Allen versus Tim Allen in the Christmas Battle of the Century or something,
Well, apparently they just did that, so...
Because but they don't advertise the movie that way. They're just like, oh yeah, he needs to find a wife. And they don't really talk about Toy Santa at all. I mean, you see like his mooks occasionally in like the trailer, but never him. But it's like, I feel like they would have banked on this.
Toy Santa, by the way, does directly say, "You are a sad, strange little man."
Yeah, that's
directly
great.
quoting Buzz Lightyear, the man, the myth, the legend.
It would have been great if he responded with "You are a toy" back to him, but that was time. Fine.
So I really want to bring up my movie postulation about Santa Claus 2, which is that it's a commentary on the U.S. prison complex. There is no way to be 100% good, especially if you strictly follow the rule of law without any desire to ignore some things that are bad or like change those laws. The laws aren't always beneficial. And punishing everyone who breaks all of those laws costs way too many resources. The elves being like slave labor as well. Elves more so are the resources it wastes.
Yeah. It's like that tracks basically. Like that is a very, very interesting and honestly compelling reading of the story, where
Tim Allen wears rubber prosthetics and yells at people.
Yes. But like the idea of the law as written is important to Toy Santa because he is a cold, unthinking machine.
He's a robot. He's just like, oh, these are the rules. We just gotta do it.
It's iRobot, but with Santa. Isaac Asimov presents Fascist Santa.
I find it funny how Toy Santa can't he's into that whole robot trope. I can't comprehend emotion, but he can comprehend being a jerk. He's basically Bender.
Yeah, I was gonna say this Santa Claus 2 Toy Santa is basically the same as Futurama's Robot Santa, except that one kills people.
I can't feel emotions. That makes me sad sometimes. Do you think Toy Santa would have drinking beer on screen if he was allowed to?
There's one more thing I want to bring up about the second movie, but we really do need to get to the third movie pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I just want to mention that the date that Tim Allen has with Carol is like basically they go outside, there's a sleigh with horses, they're riding, Carol's like, it would be so nice if, and then it starts snowing and it zooms out and it's like only snowing over their sleigh. And then they get to this
then there's a teachers conference where they have the same problem as the step-parents from the last movie where they're butthurt they didn't get toys and Santa. He summons them all.
Hold on. So this is after the sleigh ride. They're on the way to the teachers conference. They get there and then it's really boring and Scott is like, hey, I'm going to do something. I'll be right back. He gets on stage and starts posting cringe. He's like, what's in these presents? And Carol's like, no, there's nothing in those presents. They're props. And Taro's like, what? There's nothing in those presents? What about these presents?
Galen, make a Tim Allen noise. You haven't made one yet.
Hang on. I can do that.
Great. So he starts giving out actual presents because he is Santa. He can conjure presents from bags. And it's all of these like old like 60s and 70s packaging.
Like Rocket Soccer
of like
robots
different
and stuff.
toys and stuff, which I do love the attention to detail of like the time
Because that's
frame.
how they would have been if they were kids, like when they got him.
And then everybody gets toys, all the teachers in the teachers conference.
Imagine like he does that with us and we just get an actual working Super Nintendo or something. Like,
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
So he gives them all toys. They spend like hours just playing, and then Scott takes Carol home and he's like, so I need to tell you something. I'm Santa. And Carol's like, no, you're not.
You're a psycho.
And
I can't
Scott's
believe
like,
you.
I just did like 25 Christmas miracles out there. What do you think that was? And Carol's
she's
like,
all
you're
worked
not
up about it too.
Santa.
She's like,
Also, I do just want to quickly say that that scene is actually my favorite scene in the movie. It's the only one I very genuinely liked. It has a lot of heart. Tim Allen is, despite posting cringe, is like actually really good. It shows Tim Allen as Santa as a like
even if
emotionally
he's
intelligent person.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Then there's also like the resolution with Charlie is because Charlie wants to tell people how cool Scott is, but he can't. That's pretty much the reason. He's literally like,
yeah, okay.
My dad works at Nintendo, but I can't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I hate that so much because the first movie had a moral that you could actually apply to like yourself if you were a kid of a divorced parent, where it's like, hey, look, even if you prefer one or the other, they're both family. But like, no, the second one, there is no moral for that. It's just like I can't unless there is someone whose dad is literally Santa.
Well, wait, there is something equivalent, like a cool job. Galen, your kids, remember? You're like the secret shadowy head of all the U.S. organizations and stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
Damn it.
Cool stuff, but you can't tell your kids about that.
Oh, damn it. Jimothy and Sam Taniel.
Curtis shows up to ask for help, and this is actually my favorite joke in the movie, is Lucy, who is Scott's niece. I want to say she's the daughter.
That was like the stepdaughter.
Sort of. It's the
daughter of Neil and whatever his wife's name was.
She's the biological daughter of Neil and Neil's wife, who, again, I don't remember her name.
I don't remember the
But Scott's not really related to her.
He still gets along for nice, though.
Curtis shows up.
There's a really quick side note. There's a scene where it's a plot point. There's other like legendary holiday figures. Like
we forgot about that. There's all these different holiday figures. There's a
bit
whole
where like
council.
he has to rip out one of his teeth with like a bowling ball, so he can like so like the tooth fairy can take him somewhere.
Right.
And it's just like the most cringe thing ever. Like
so my favorite joke is when Curtis shows up and Tim Allen's like, we need to talk business, so you need to leave the room, Lucy. And Lucy just says, soon I'll be 7, and then I can know this.
Yeah.
I'm a big kid now.
It's the precursor to like the chaotic child trope that you see a lot in cartoons.
Yeah, God, that's a really good way. Like that is the kind of line that would come from like an OKKO sort of,
like the girl
character.
from Big City Greens.
Yeah,
Tilly.
Yeah.
That's really good.
They have to get back to the North Pole. They try to pull out Scott's tooth to summon the Tooth Fairy. And eventually Lucy just comes up and says, hey, I lost a tooth. I should leave it under the pillow. And
also, side note, back to the reason why they need the Tooth Fairy's help, back to the one scene with Carol. And Matthew made a great point how it's like kind of like an even worse version of the point I made about Santa Claus. It's like, how come no one thinks he's real when he did all the literal magic? But yeah, he's like running out of magic. Because he's turning back to human, I guess. Yeah. So that's why they need to get the Tooth Fairy's help. So he's gonna.
Oh, and Comet ate too many candy bars.
Does Santa have magic powers or no? Do they ever
go that? Okay.
Because he puts on the coat too. He's trying to get the coat off of him in the final battle. Remember?
I am going to lightning round this because I have so many CinemaSins dings for this movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to do a commentary. Side note, related to what Galen said, out of all the movies to let's watch, I think this one would be the most fun to do, like a commentary.
Yeah.
Like style.
So much of this movie.
Because there's so much going on in this movie. Like,
Okay. All right. Lightning round. So there is a good joke where the head elf is like, snowballs at the ready, fire, and then they throw a bunch of snowballs at the toy soldiers, and they like lean back, and then they just lean back forward. That's a good joke. The toy Santa versus real Santa fight, all of it is like ADR, or most of it is ADR. It's really awkward. They make a gag out of, actually, first of all, there's like, so Tim Allen shows up at soon to be Mrs. Claus's house after like meeting her like 3 times in the movie, which, okay, sure, it shows that they've been getting close and obviously they're interested in each other. But like, if I met someone 3 times and I was really close with them, I'd still think it would be weird if they showed up at my door and were like, want to get pizza? Then after that, at the very end, they make a gag out of the part where it's like, oh, there's no pressure to marry me, but like if you don't, then Christmas doesn't exist anymore.
And like put that on her, like, oh.
Yeah, like
it's really
the thing
shitty.
is that gag works if she like laughs along with it, but like she's like genuinely concerned. Yeah.
Oh wow, am I gonna ruin
I was
Christmas
stressed out watching that scene.
Again, like there's so much that's so troubling about all these movies. Like even as a little kid, I thought they're kind of distressing to watch. Like.
There's a Kim Possible poster featured prominently in Lucy's room.
Makes sense. Given the time period, also a Disney movie, nice cross promotion. Fun fact, I didn't realize this until my little sister Boz pointed out. Sky High, there's an Aquabats poster in Will's room.
That's dope.
I love that. I love that touch.
There's no
also,
sky.
They use the
interesting thing. Lucy, that's a little girl, right?
Yes.
It's a bit of trivia about her. Remember Chowder?
Wait, that's Chowder?
No, you remember Chowder though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nini, the little rabbit.
Okay.
That was her.
Okay.
Same
Holy
actress.
shit.
Wow.
Yeah, same actress.
Oh, God. The
We
worst
need to-
part of the movie, Chet.
That reindeer with the
yeah.
annoying voice.
Yeah.
Chet is a reindeer that
He's
has
a terrible
the like,
CGI
dill
reindeer with an annoying
pickles.
voice. He's very
Yeah, he has
Jar
the
Jar
D-
Binks in the worst
has the-
possible way.
He
Bad
has the
CGI,
dill
annoying
pickles
voice.
baby voice. They're like,
And
It's
he
not a cute
shits
voice either.
everywhere.
It's just like an annoying voice. It's like blah blah blah.
The
He's like this
reindeer, the reindeer's only purpose in these movies is to make fart jokes that they can put in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't treat the reindeer of any dignity in these movies at all. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, Chet is
I
like
need-
Jar Jar Binks in the worst possible way. He's like bad CGI character with annoying voice. No disrespect to Jar Jar's voice actor. He's actually a pretty cool dude.
We need
and
to get to the
That's a
third
story for
movie.
another day, though.
Third movie came out 2006, 4-year gap. My first note of this is that Bernard retired feels bad, man. That's what I have written. My second note is that Santa fucks.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, that is my
canonically had sex. He canonically
Santa
had sex.
fucked.
Yes. Along with
Canonical-
Goofy the dog, characters in Disney movies who have had sex.
Does Emperor Palpatine count? Does Emperor Palpatine count?
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
We
Unfortunately,
need an orgy of like Tim Allen, Santa Claus, Emperor Zombie, Emperor Palpatine from Rise of Skywalker, and Goofy.
Oh my
Imagine
god.
we
sound.
don't.
Imagine
Actually,
What Mr.
Actually,
Boop hell
Weasel.
is that?
Your purest nightmares. That's what it is.
All
Imagine
right.
the
I
sound.
can't believe I'm having sex with my wife, who is also Santa Claus.
So yeah, the baby is due, but not quite yet, but the baby's due, and Santa is kind of going a little stressed out because too much bad stuff is happening, and also the Council
previous
of
two
Legends.
movies.
The Council of
Yeah,
Legends.
the Council of
convenes.
Legends.
So
like,
we
hey, Jack
barely
Frost is being
touched
a
on
jerk.
them, but it's Mother Nature, Father Time, the Easter Bunny, Sandman, the Tooth Fairy. I think that's all of the main ones before Jack Frost shows up, who is like being punished.
He's like on probation. It's like you got to do community service to help
Right.
out with Santa.
Also, another point of injecting a sequel thing where there wasn't a sequel, because Jack Frost is never mentioned in the second movie,
Yeah.
and then in that movie it's like, oh, and you never show up to the meetings, so
Yeah.
Such a lazy way to retcon that. I
So
love it.
something I do like is that when they're talking about ways to help Santa with his stress, one of them, I think it's Cupid, mentions the escape clause, and instead of Tim Allen having to go escape clause, what's that? He just says escape clause is too extreme. Like he is.
He knows what it is.
He knows
the
what
movie's
it
about
is.
Jack Frost learning what it is.
For once, Tim Allen doesn't need to be told what a clause in a contract is.
He read the
yes,
Santa.
Right. He read it after the second movie, like, okay, there better not be any more fucking secrets in here. I swear on my mum.
the A plot of the like fucking 4 plots that there are,
Yeah.
which is another thing. Like the mess that is the second movie and the third movie of just like there's too many plots happening, too many moving parts, none of it matters. In the third movie, nothing matters until the exact like third act.
Yeah.
But one of the moving parts is that Carol's in-laws are coming because they are bringing her in-laws, quote unquote, to Canada where Scott works, and her in-laws, first of all, are
it's Carol's
like
parents.
Carol's parents are, first of all, very like boomer toxic.
Yes, they're boomers.
They're boomers and very about it, where it's like, if you're so comfortable with him being so close to his ex-wife, you never call us. It's terrible.
And then her dad is like, "Oh, this place sucks. I'm going to get out my Harbor Freight toolkit and I'm going to install a new oven in here because you can't be bothered to put in your own new oven."
Yeah,
you uncivilized.
What kind of husband are you if you don't have an oven to cook for? Like, maybe he doesn't like oven food. Like, who cares?
I do. There is.
And they're also like, how come you don't spend enough time with it? But the lie that he's still saying he owns a toy factory, which is correct. And it's just like, you don't spend enough time, where it's like, he's still going to be busy. He's got to manage the factory. That's hard work,
Yeah.
Also, the thing that really makes the movie, the thing that elevates this movie above the second for me is that there's a lot of gags that are just funny. Like, the entire time that they're dressing up the place as Canada, it's all like very like Maple Leaf store and Canadian Mall and whatever.
You're saying elevates, do you mean better or worse?
Yeah, it specifically, there's one thing where like the pine tree lot is labeled as genuine Canada Christmas trees. Next sign from right here in Canada. Next sign, which is where you are right now.
That's a good gag.
That is a BoJack Horseman gag, basically.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is too good of a gag for this movie.
Yeah.
The plot is weird because it's like, so you got the pregnant thing, you got the in-laws, and you got Jack Frost, and he wants to be Santa Claus. And it culminates to Jack Frost is trying to like sabotage Santa Claus to make him feel bad, so he wants to use the escape clause. And what the escape clause is, it's basically a reset button where you basically go back in time to right before you became Santa, and you don't become Santa. And you'd think that this would be the plot of most of the movie, but no, they don't cover until like kind of the end.
Right. It took 50 minutes before this happened.
Stuff at, like, Santa's
It
factory.
was literally the third act.
It took 50
It is
minutes.
2/3 of the way through the movie.
See, here's the
It's
thing.
like the halfway point, not like 2/3,
Santa Claus 1 takes like 15 minutes to get to the meat of the movie. Same with Santa Claus 2, it doesn't take that long. Santa Claus 3 takes 50 minutes before the like selling point of the movie actually happens. The rest of it, like those 50 minutes are Jack Frost being a complete asshole and Carol's parents being complete assholes, and Scott just feels bad because of all this stuff. And
everyone's just a jerk to everyone. That's like the trend of these movies. That's also why I didn't like it as a kid.
Yeah. We don't even really need to cover much about that. Jack Frost burns the entire workshop.
Jack Frost is horny for Scott's mother-in-law. Weirdly.
Oh yeah. Well, then also Carol's dad is horny for Mother Nature at the end.
Yeah, and the Easter Bunny is horny for Carol's mom.
Yeah, it's so basically what happens is every Santa has a snow globe, and Jack Frost steals Santa's snow globe, which needs better security, and then he tricks Santa into holding it and saying the magic words.
A very specific phrase, like
I wish I was never Santa at all.
Claus ever. Yeah, at all. It's like very specific.
So they travel back in time to the Christmas Eve where Santa died, and Jack Frost puts on the suit instead of Tim Allen. Then it does like a, flashback to the future.
It's like It's a Wonderful Life, but no quality, basically.
Everything is worse. Scott is successful. He's like the CEO in what is it? Egg Helms is working for him. And then he's like, I gotta go find my family. And then
his son is like the worst delinquent. His wife and Neil ended up divorcing too because they didn't get along because their son was a jerk. And
then Neil is taking Lucy to the North Pole, which is
Lucy's like a brat instead of like a nice kid in this universe.
Well, so they go to the North Pole, which is turned into an amusement park. Kind of, it's a very typical, like, Santa Claus Land amusement park, but not as good as Holiday World.
And a very typical, like, evil guy makes evil casino or theme park. Like, very Biff in, like, Back to the Future Part 2. Like, very much that.
This episode, by the way, is sponsored by Holiday World. Holiday World. Come here whenever we're open and not in a pandemic.
Please invite us to Holiday World.
I
Please.
legitimately recommend Holiday World if you're in the Midwest and you don't want to go to a Six Flags.
No, it's actually really good. So, like, there's this whole scene where Scott walks into the North Pole world, and it's like, you know, he's looking around, and it's like, oh, the elves are having a bad time, and they're selling T-shirts, and there's money exchanging hands, and it's all, you know, the over-commodification of Christmas, and it's fine.
You can find out more about it if you buy the Santa Claus 3 at our Disney theme park, where you can buy our
This looks just like a ride at Universal Studios.
Cha-ching.
We'll have to talk about that someday, but that's a story for another day.
It's, you know, it's fine. It's a Christmas movie. It can talk about, oh, this isn't the real spirit of Christmas, even though the real spirit of Christmas is the overcommodification. It was entirely created and has only survived as a tradition as it stands because of the overcommodification of everything. But whatever.
I have a problem with that theme though, because so Scott says like the spirit of Christmas isn't about these little knickknacks like these talking pens or whatever, but the reason he's stressed in the first point is because he needs to give every kid who celebrates Christmas a present.
Yeah, so it's like it's
the source of his problem that he still wants to uphold and like maintain is materialism. It's just not the materialism Jack Frost has.
Yeah, this is such a fucking bullshit neoliberal story.
Yeah.
It's that classic, like, fake, like, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and I criticize it just as much as, like, I praise it, and it's like that fake morality you see there all the time, you know, it's like, killing people is wrong, except for, like, these random people, like, you don't see.
Yeah.
Breaking merchandise off of Christmas is wrong, unless you, like, if it's a bad guy doing it, if it's him doing it, it's fine, like, you know.
Yeah, so, this part in the future where he goes to the North Pole is, like, 10 minutes long or something. It's not very long.
It feels like we've been in the plot. Like, it feels like a big waste opportunity.
Right. So he goes to see Jack Frost, who is dressed up as Santa and is Santa in this universe.
This film came out in 2006. I feel like if it came out just 3 years later, Jack Frost would just be another The One Slur before there was even The One Slur.
Which, I don't know what happened to the previous Jack Frost then? Is there a new Jack Frost? Another question that's never answered.
Jack Frost, but we'll wait till...
Yeah. So
I'll tell you about it.
Here's the thing. Lucy is actually willing to help Scott, which is the most surprising thing to me.
I actually don't have a massive problem with that, just because I'll accept that, like, he's been Santa for a long time. He can be warm enough to convince a kid, especially when he kind of knows.
Because he retains, like, his memories when he comes back.
Right.
Like,
I don't dislike it. I'm just saying that's, like, the one character who's willing to help.
Yeah.
So she goes into the Hall of Snow Globes and steals the snow globe for Jack Frost, and Tim Allen just makes a distraction where he does a little fight on stage. It's like it's a little fight on stage. And then...
Can you describe this? What was it? Was it a fight? Did it happen on stage?
Yeah.
Well, there was a stage. And, a fight occurred.
He may have gotten into a tussle on a
but then
platform.
Lucy.
Yeah. So then Lucy throws the snowball or the snow globe over to Tim Allen. Jack Frost catches it. He's like, "You thought you could, you little bitch!" And then Tim Allen pulls out the
exact quote from that movie.
And then Tim Allen pulls out the talking pen that he got from Curtis,
and he used it to record him saying like the phrase earlier.
Yeah, and then they go back in time. Tim Allen stops Jack.
With me because he goes back in time to that night again, but he stops Jack Frost from killing Santa, but he still lets himself kill Santa. And this probably bugged me as a kid too, where it's like, okay, so he's cool with this other Santa dying as long as his life becomes better or something.
Yes.
Kind of stuff.
This is Tim Allen presents the trolley problem.
That one bit is so good. That should be its own story, like in a more complex story, not a brief scene in the Santa Claus, where it's like, yeah, what if you kill this guy dies, but your life all around becomes better, and not just your life, but everyone else's life, But like, what's like? That'd be a really interesting tale about morality and stuff and what you decide to do. But nah, it's just I won't expect this movie to dive into that. But what I'm make a premise.
Isn't that basically the Christmas Carol?
Yeah, that is just the Christmas Carol, actually.
No, but I mean, if you could choose for someone else to die instead of you, but like if you took their like that premise,
Right.
Not quite.
Yeah,
he goes
Matt,
back,
continue.
but in present, but there's still a problem in the present because we glanced over this because it barely matters. But yeah, the step parents, Neil and whatever the wife's name was, walk in on Jack Frost doing evil stuff, so he freezes them, and like, man, they're frozen. What do we do? It's like, haha, you can't unfreeze them. My magic works. Only I can do it, and you got to thaw me to do it. So they win with the power of friendship. The little girl hugs him, and the power of friendship warms his heart and like thaws him.
Right.
And melts
In
him,
like
powers. And this messes with me as a kid, because okay, the holiday figures are charged stuff, right? Where did they just mess up Winter forever? Because they thought Jack Frost, and he's like he's not human. He has like
looks
pointy
like
ears.
Mr.
So he's an
Bean.
elf, but he's like taller than an
Yeah.
elf. He's tall. So is he like a freakish mutant elf, or is he something different entirely?
Jack Water.
Ignoring that. So he doesn't have the powers of Winter now. So do they just mess up Winter forever? Did Santa Claus cause global warming in this universe? Is that how it happened? Because I'm thinking it's not just weather, because he brings up chill. He invented chill. So did he just invent cold weather in general? And this also raises another creepy implication I'm thinking about. Did Jack Frost, and to a lesser extent going to Rankin Bass verse, Snow Miser, if they're in charge of elements in general, and they're shown to be like both kind of evil, like Santa Claus, Jack Frost was the villain here, and in A Year Without a Santa Claus, the Miser brothers are portrayed as villains and everyone's scared of them. How many people did Snow Miser and Santa Claus 3 Jack Frost actually kill over history? Like the Ice Age, Snow Miser probably got a kick out of that. He got to genocide the dinosaurs and give a middle finger to his brother. Like, how many people has, like, Jack Frost actually killed, like, on purpose in these stories?
Wait, is global warming Heat Miser's revenge?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Shit.
And then you
Movie
they joke about
postulation
this,
number 3.
Well, they joke about this in like a kind of sequel special they made years later, where they're in an argument where it's like, my brother has been spreading preposterous propaganda that's been giving global warming a bad name. Where it's like, what about you spending rumors there's going to be a second ice age? So yeah, that's kind of confirmed, I guess.
Yeah, so we're
You're
basically
right.
at the end of Santa Claus 3.
Yeah.
It's that Lucy hugs Jack Frost. Jack Frost becomes Jack Water.
Jack White.
Who
Slush becomes
who
Jack
looks
Slush.
horrified.
Wait, no, he's Jack White.
Oh yeah.
Oh, but he looks horrified. Cannot stress enough how fucking weird Jack Frost as a normal person, as a normal white guy looks. It's so
like
fucking
Joker,
weird.
quote unquote, without makeup, it somehow looks like even more unsettling.
Yeah.
It's like, put it back on.
So yeah, third movie, really weird. The best, okay, I don't know if best, but the worst part, maybe weirdest part, is that at the very end, Scott's like, all right, I need to come clean to you guys. I'm not actually a toy maker in Canada. I'm at the North Pole. These are elves. I'm Santa. And Carol's parents are just like, oh, okay. So the boomers are the most receptive of him being Santa.
Not just, by the way, he doesn't actually directly tell them he's Santa.
Yeah.
He shows them the factory and they're like, oh my God, those aren't Canadians, they're elves. And then these two fucking boomers who cannot double click, I assure you.
Figure out by themselves that he's Santa when no one else in the movie's
They're like, wait, but if those are elves because they have pointy ears, then that means that you're Santa.
Because you're fat and have the white beard. Like, it all makes sense now.
And then
They're the only characters in these movies who put that together, except for, like, his kids, sort of. So, yeah, little kids and boomers are canonically the smartest characters in the Santa Claus movies.
oh no.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, and then at the end, the Easter Bunny shits on the floor.
What a note.
Okay, so I have a few thematic things I want to touch on.
Before you touch upon the things as a whole, I would like one more lightning round. Just to wrap up a few of my notes. The side gags in the North Pole are really good, like shave a reindeer for $5 or elf tosses at $6.
Oh, I forgot the elf tossing.
Yeah, elf toss is
It's
great.
up there with
20,
Benito
30
Mussolini
meters.
Toy Santa, where it's like, how did that make it past the censors?
The reindeer are thankfully absent for most of the movie. The baby delivery scene is literally just the opening sped up. I think that's a great gag. It is 1-to-1 just the entire opening.
Oh yeah, because the opening of the movie, it's like begins with a false thing where they think the water broke, but turns out, oh no, it false alarm, it didn't.
Yeah.
And it's just that again, but it's like for real. It's just that.
And then finally, I want to put Neil on blast just a second, because heavy implication that Neil really only cares about Lucy. So okay, this is the thing. in the first movie, Charlie is kind of like, yeah, I'm going into the family business. So it's like, oh, he doesn't really consider Neil his own dad. But then they have Lucy, and Lucy is their child. And so, like, when they divorce in the alternate universe, Neil takes Lucy. So, like, it's just this heavy layer of implication that, like, Neil really only considers Lucy his child, and like, Charlie really only considers his dad to be Santa.
Right.
It's just it's all kinds of crossed wires, especially because there's also like a gag scene where like Neil is like, let's take a feeling pit stop, and he, everybody inhales and like does a huff except for Charlie, who's like better than this. It's, I don't know. It's just the first movie had a pretty neat.
I didn't like it as a
The
kid.
first movie had a kind of neat thing to say about divorced kids, and the second and third movie do everything they can to destroy that. That's all I got on my soapbox.
Yeah, it does
You
feel
take the
like
floor, Matt.
at least Charlie and Lucy are like on good terms with each other. They're like friendly. They're siblings, but like, yeah, they don't ignore each other or hate each other or anything.
They don't really even have the annoying like little sister, annoying older brother dynamic most of these relationships do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
first,
All right.
I want to bring up that the themes this movie wants to portray are not what it actually portrays. So, for example, it really wants this like believing in Santa theme that you see in all these different Christmas movies to be a central theme, but we've already established that it's not just belief in something that you don't know if it exists. There's a way to prove that Santa exists, and nobody believes. It's like, if Jesus were to come in this universe, nobody would believe it's Jesus, because people clearly don't have that capacity.
Except for the children and the boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
And
blessed
moreover,
are the boomers, because those are the children of the earth.
Oh God,
It's
no!
like pottery,
Please.
it all came together.
But moreover as well, like, it's about, you gotta believe in Santa, and that goes for the adults too. And then the entire plot in the third movie is we can't let these two boomers believe in Santa.
Right.
Despite the fact that in the first and the second, it's kind of integral to make the adults re-believe in Santa.
Right. Also, so what they're doing with Scott's character in the first movie doesn't make sense to me, because it feels like they're trying to dip their toes into two common ways to set up this sort of plot, which is the fatalistic and the karmic sides. So, like, they try to make it karmic that Scott becomes Santa because, like, oh, he's not as good of a parent as he should be, and so he's paid the ultimate price by having to be, Santa Claus. So, like, like, he does the whole, he doesn't have as much time for his family because he's working, but, like, he does try to leave that party quickly, and he wants to be a good father to Charlie, but Charlie just kind of doesn't like him in the first movie
It's also
until he
another
becomes Santa.
disturbing kind of message about a lot of these movies that never sat right with me as a kid. The moral of the story always seems to be like, man, dad's parents in general, but like dad specifically, because we brought up like that oddly specific subgenre thing. Like, dad's working too hard to support the family. That's not great because you don't get to spend time with your kids. It's like, it's working hard. I gotta pay for the house and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess I never related to this either because my dad was like that too. He used to work at a power plant and really long shifts late at night, and it was like miserable. He's got all these stories about like animals and stuff there. But it's like, yeah, it's like I get why like my dad has to be like gone for a bajillion hours. It's like sad, but like I get it. And I don't know. I feel like it kind of sends like a bad message to kids in that regard too, where it's like sometimes the parents gotta work. Like he still
Right.
loves you and tries to spend time with you.
If anything, that doesn't change. He still has to work a ton. He
Yeah,
just
like
still doesn't
arguably
have
even
time
more
to
so.
hang out with
Atlanta,
Charlie.
He has to be at the North Pole all the time. He can't even. He visits him even less now.
Yeah, it's like
Like in
that.
Santa Claus too, he doesn't even know his kid's on the naughty list. Like,
Right.
what does that say about how much he's got to visit him?
The karmic thing doesn't work, and then they try to do like a fatalistic thing, like, oh, your initials are also SC. What a coincidence! You're now Santa Claus. Yeah, but like,
It's so
they
forced.
don't commit to that. They make it seem like it's this random occurrence that he became Santa, and like, sure, that could still be like a fatalistic theme, but it's not present throughout the rest of the movie. There's no other like, your life was leading up to this. It's kind of just written off as a joke that he was a toy maker. He doesn't even make toys. He's a marketer. He's not like a toy inventor
That's like saying
or
the
anything.
producer made the movie. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's like the karmic and the fatalistic themes kind of break each other. They don't really mesh well in this case.
when you actually like look at what the character is.
Right. Next one, Santa Claus is made to die.
Yeah.
Santa Claus is meant to exist. This also is just another point that Santa must exist. There is no world without Santa. Santa has to exist no matter what. The whole point of the clause is that it is basically a way to trick people into becoming Santa because a Santa dies.
Implying that people might not even want to be Santa in this universe.
Right. The reason
how many were willing Santas in this world?
Yeah, the practical reason why the text is so small is because you can't have somebody.
To keep a secret. They wanted to lie.
Yeah, they want to lie so that people actually become Santa. It's so urgent that they need somebody to do that without knowing what will happen. The card says the reindeer know what to do, so the reindeer don't care who's actually flying them. They just know what to do automatically.
That's when that gets me too, because in Santa Claus 2, at the end, the final battle, he's chasing after Toy Santa. He's riding on Chet, that annoying reindeer. He jumps off of Chet, and the other reindeer are just listening to him fine. And I always thought, yeah, he's evil. Why would you listen to him? But the reindeer don't care. They just go with whoever. Like,
Santa's bag carries him up and down the chimneys by itself. It doesn't take any sort of prompting in order to actually do that.
You don't have to prove to be worthy to use Santa's bag or anything. It's just
he doesn't need to do like a command word or anything, or he doesn't have to manually stretch open the chimney. The chimney just stretches open by itself.
This actually reminds me of another point Mr. Sunday Movies made I thought was interesting, where, there's a brief scene where, Bernard, teleports between their houses or something, the North Pole and, Scott's house to, eat a cookie or something, and they bring up, and this combined with stuff you brought with, the reindeer in the bag thing, too, it's do they even need Santa? They could just do this all by themselves, in theory.
Right,
Is Santa kind of a weird figurehead for this? Is that why he just exists? Is he just a figurehead for, the elves and validation?
This is the point I was going to bring up. It's not important that somebody is Santa. What's important is the idea of Santa. This is why the secret of Santa must be maintained, not because they'll lose power if people figure out, but because it jeopardizes the lore of Santa. Typically nobody knows that Santa is real. They have to keep
the myth alive, legend alive.
Exactly.
That kind of
the reason why the body and identity change is because that's part of the lore of Santa. And same with the Mrs. Claus.
Santa. You can't be clean shaven and skinny. You have to be fat and have the beard.
Or why does there need to be a Mrs. Claus? Because that's part of the legend. Yeah. That what's happening is Santa isn't immortal. Santa can die, and is kind of everything around him is set up to maintain the image of Santa.
Idea of Santa alive, this concept.
Right. Everything around Santa is set up to maintain the image of Santa, but Santa himself isn't immortal. The reason why the secret of Santa must be maintained is because nobody knows that Santa is real in legend.
And the thing that kind of flows from that is that there's a positive reading and a negative one, where you could have a positive reading of that where it's Santa is built to be a legend to give people something to believe in, because
anyone can be Santa, but at the same time it forces you to be Santa.
One of these one of the through lines of the movie is seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. So if you want there to be a Santa, then there is a Santa. That's sort of a consistent thing. But the flip side of that then is that, like you said, Santa is a figure built to die.
Yeah.
Santa is a figure built to make the elves very happy and give children something to believe in, and then pass the buck to some fucking poor schmuck who needs to, put on the fucking coat.
And the process repeats forever.
Right. Yeah.
Who was the last Santa, who died at the beginning? Was it just some, random homeless guy the elves found? It's I guess you. We spun the roulette wheel and it landed on you.
Right.
The beneficiaries at the end of this are the elves, not the Santa.
Oh, also, I feel like the whole binding contract thing would have worked better if Scott was a lawyer and not a
that would
marketer.
Make more sense actually if he was a lawyer for the toy factory instead of an executive.
That would have been more of a karmic thing that I think would have landed better. Because as it is right now, it just feels like taking advantage of somebody, it's a really, really scummy practices, and any sort of benefit that happens because he becomes Santa is clouded by the fact that he never signed up to this and it was done without his consent.
It's anything that's cool that happens, I didn't agree to this.
Speaking of which, I want to get to my list of fucked up things before the episode ends. So here's the list of fucked up things. First, Scott loses his identity. He stops calling himself Scott as much as the series goes on.
Again, werewolf thing, it overrides your personality, the person you are.
His body, facial hair, diet all change without his permission, and he literally cannot change back. There's that fucked up park scene in the first movie. I don't want to talk about it beyond that. The elves are prepared for Santa to be arrested, which means that Santa had to have been arrested before or considered being arrested. They have the whole thing in place. And within 1 year, he's completely accepted his identity of Santa Claus. Charlie says he's going to go into the family business, which would require patricide. We don't know what happened to the last Mrs. Claus. There's all the gender and sexuality implications, what if a woman put on the Santa suit because there was nobody else around? What if a gay man put on the Santa suit?
If a lesbian woman puts on the suit doesn't count. Well, wait, she would have if a lesbian woman had a wife, but would she be forcefully turned into a male Santa by that?
I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
Just the whole fascist toy Santa thing. The escape clause doesn't necessarily prevent deaths. This is the
Elf
big
throwing,
thing. This is the
elf
big thing.
tossing.
No, so here's the big thing. If Scott were to want to do the escape clause, Santa would have still died.
Yeah.
He would have to like interact with his past self in order to prevent that. So because the escape clause doesn't really take you back before Santa dies, it's more like before you put on the suit. Like you can't really save the previous Santa all the time.
So he's gonna die no matter what.
There's gotta have been a death at some point, unless every Santa death was planned. There's gotta have been a death at some point that you couldn't go back and save Santa from dying, and if you're the only one around, then the escape clause is meaningless. And then why not save the previous Santa? You had time, you could have just kept that. I think this is the problem that's lingered with me the most, is that to Scott, the fact that he is Santa is something that he wants because it like fixed all of his relations.
But he doesn't necessarily want to be Santa.
Well, here's the other thing. By this point, he is completely on board with the idea of being Santa. He drinks cocoa all the time. He interacts with the elves. He does Santa things. And it's not... I wonder how much of it is not that he wants to still be Santa, but that he can't imagine not being Santa. Like, his identity has been removed.
Like, this is all that defines me. If I remove this and Santa Claus 3 proves that he's kind of correct. If I never became Santa, my life would just be miserable.
But not even that. Just like, why wouldn't he be Santa? He is Santa.
Just become this whole hullabaloo. And like I said, the thing with like the whole thing you just brought, the whole with symbol of Santa and like being forced into doing stuff again. And the worst part is for me about this is again, I like this premise. I love this idea, like of like kind of making up this fake lore for Santa Claus, and I love the idea of making him a legacy character. Like there's been like Santa will die eventually, and like there's other ones that'll take his place. There's been like I'm trying to think of all the other things that did this. There was Ernest Saves Christmas. I think that movie Arthur Christmas. I never saw that, but I knew a bit about it. Did that too because the Santa in that one's like Santa the 20th or something. So there's been a whole bunch where it's like I like that idea. That's a neat idea. Like that's a neat take on like this like lore for this character. An excuse to have all kinds of neat characters like get to become him and stuff. But I feel like this takes this premise and does like almost everything wrong with it. Like from the beginning, the previous Santa's killed by him on accident, and just everything else that we've talked about. It's like just more this horrifying existential thing. And it's just like I want to see this idea done more, but I just feel like these movies really drop the ball with it. It's kind of my big problem. I know they're beloved by a lot of people, but like I never liked them that much. Like that's nothing against you. I'm just kind of sharing my own little thoughts on it, you know.
I feel like there is, with a lot of these Santa behind the scenes movies, the idea is that it's just world building. It exists to tell the reasons behind Santa. But this just has the opposite of world building. It's anti-synergistic. It doesn't fit with itself. It just raises so many questions that are left unanswered.
Galen brought up a pet peeve of his, with like red kind of sequels. Like my one big pet peeves, I cannot stand anti-world building. Like that annoys me to no end. I've been a big, like I brought up as a Star Wars nerd. I've been a big comic book nerd too, so I had to grow up with all the kind of convolutedness of that. I despise anti-world building, and these movies are like kind of filled with that.
The problem that I see as well is just that the Santa Claus 1 is a mid-90s movie where all of the world building exists basically to justify the next scene, but like it flows naturally where it's very good like hyper kid logic. It's just, how does he get down this chimney? He floats up with the bag and goes down, Oh, how does Santa become Santa? The old Santa dies and he puts on his coat. But like that's fine for a single movie that is just trying to justify its own existence. But then you have the second and third movie. So it's like, oh, well, we have to expand the world, but it just doesn't do it in a meaningful way, and the ways that it does do it detracts from the overall experience. It's a perfectly good first movie that like gets categorically like retconned and ruined by the subsequent films. Also, I would like to point out, I know that the real reason for this is simply
No.
So I know the real reason for this is just that it's a movie, and so like they don't do this thing. But like Santa goes through this entire transformation process to become Santa.
Can you not say transformation on this podcast, please?
But this like Mrs. Claus is like a you know, all right looking blonde woman in the second movie, and in the third movie, she is an all right looking blonde woman who is pregnant. She is not a white haired, you know, rosy. She's just a woman.
She's just a regular woman. Like, she's not like an old grandma like him.
Yeah, she's
That's
just
also what made it feel weird to me,
lady.
because it's like he looks really old, but she looks like younger. It's like that just feels off. Like,
I know that the reason that this is just because, you know, when it comes to Hollywood and that sort of like age / look disparity, it's much better to have an ugly man and a nice looking woman than it is to have both looking ugly.
also,
because sexism.
Also, like, the prosthetics, people probably complain about that too. Less prosthetics we have to buy money on, like, yeah, make it cheap.
But like, it's still just sort of like, at least be consistent.
At least try to make her look like Mrs. Claus or something. Like half a can of white paint and like a pillow to look like she's kind of chubby. I don't know.
So
these movies suck.
These movies kind of suck. Watch the first one if you have any interest. It's a 7 out of 10 for me personally, but like, don't watch the rest.
Unless
it's a
you're
one
looking for something that's bad.
That's true.
Watch it.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Weasel? Any closing thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I hope you, the listener, are enjoying this as much as we are enjoying recording it, because we've recorded way too much. So that's a sign it's a good discussion.
Yes.
All right.
I guess thank you for listening. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at NetSurferPro. We are now on all major podcasting platforms, so Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those.
Spotify or Apple Pie.
Yeah.
Pumpkin pie.
Raspberry
You can
Pi.
also follow me on Twitter.
I've never had it, but it sounds good.
You can also follow me on Twitter at Matt Craig Gaming. I tweet out stuff there, as well as, just tweet out links to different things I make. And you can also follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/IEatSonic, where I talk about video games and game design and themes in video games.
Check out their series over The Witness. It's pretty damn good. You can find me on Twitter at Galen Wilson. The O in Wilson is a 0 and there's a space. You can also find me at YouTube on The Only Galen on YouTube. I don't have any videos yet, but I might. And I would like to personally congratulate all of us for talking about the Sound and Claws without bringing up the fact that Scott Cawthorn has the exact same specifications as Scott Calvin from the Santa Claus, and thus technically could be the next Santa Claus.
Oh no!
That's funny.
Good night, everybody.
See you.
Merry
Good night,
Christmas.
everybody.